Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. I parked my truck outside Miller Elementary at 10:47 a.m., 3 minutes before my scheduled meeting with the principal about the 5th grade fundraiser. As a commercial contractor, I could usually flex my hours, and volunteering at my son's school had become one of the bright spots in my routine. My phone buzzed as I stepped out, a number I didn't recognize. I almost let go to voicemail. "Mr. Browning?" The woman's voice cracked. "This is Hope Knowles. I'm a school nurse. Is everything okay? Is it about Finn?" "Mr. Browning, I need you to listen very carefully." Her breathing was shallow, rapid. "Your son is safe. He's with me right now. But during his routine checkup today, he showed me something." She paused. "Don't go home. Do you understand me? Do not go to your house. I need you to meet me at the police station on 4th Street immediately." My stomach dropped. "What happened? What did he show you?" "Not over the phone. The police are expecting you. I'm bringing Finn there now." The line went dead. I stood in the parking lot, my hand still gripping the phone. Parents walked past me, chatting about weekend plans. Everything looked normal. But Hope's voice, I'd known her for 3 years, always calm and professional. That wasn't the voice of someone who'd found a scraped knee. I pulled up the police station's address and started driving. My phone lit up. "Celia?" "My wife." I rejected the call. 20 seconds later, she called again. And again. By the time I reached the station, I had 17 missed calls from her. Inside, a detective named Brian Mercer met me in the lobby. Mid-40s, graying temples, the kind of weathered face that had seen too much. "Mr. Browning, this way." He led me to a small room where Hope sat with Finn. My 8-year-old son looked up at me with those brown eyes so much like mine, and I saw something I'd never seen before: fear. Not the fear of getting in trouble. Something deeper. "Hey, buddy." I knelt beside him. "You okay?" He nodded, but his hands were trembling. Hope opened a folder and turned it toward me. During the checkup, Finn took off his shirt. I saw bruising. When I asked him about it, he showed me more. The photographs made my vision blur. Finn's back. His sides, dark purple bruises in the shape of fingers. Welts across his shoulders. Some fresh, some yellowing with age. "I'm going to be sick," I whispered. Detective Mercer's voice was measured. "Finn told Nurse Knowles that these injuries were inflicted by someone in your household. Is that correct?" I couldn't form words. Couldn't breathe. "Finn," Mercer said gently, "can you tell your father what you told us?" My son's voice was barely audible. "Grandma Edith, when you're at work." The room tilted. Edith Spaulding, Celia's mother. She'd moved in with us 6 months ago after her husband died, after Celia convinced me it would be temporary, that her mother needed family support. She'd been staying in our guest room, helping with Finn after school, while Celia worked her nursing shifts at the hospital. "How long?" My voice sounded foreign. "Since she came to live with us," Finn said. "She said if I told anyone, she'd hurt you too. She said accidents happen to people who don't listen." Detective Mercer leaned forward. "Finn's been very brave, Mr. Browning. We need to ask you some questions. First, does your wife know about this?" "I don't. I can't imagine she would." But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Celia had been distant lately, defensive whenever I questioned her mother's discipline methods. "She works night shifts 3 days a week. She's usually asleep when I get home." "Your phone's been ringing," Mercer observed. I checked. 34 missed calls now, all from Celia. "Finn came home from school about 20 minutes ago," Hope explained. "I called you first. Then I was legally obligated to report to Child Protective Services. They would have contacted your wife." My phone buzzed again. This time, a text. "Where are you? What did you tell them? Call me now." Not "Is Finn okay?" Not "What's happening?" Just offensive panic. Mercer took my phone, read the message. His expression hardened. "Mr. Browning, I'm going to be direct with you. In cases like this, we see patterns. If your wife knew, even suspected, and did nothing, she's culpable. If she didn't know, she'll be devastated and cooperative." That message doesn't read like someone who's just learning her son was abused. I looked at Finn again. Really looked. The way he flinched when I raised my hand to check his forehead. The way he'd been wearing long sleeves, even in warm weather. The nightmares he'd been having that Celia dismissed as growing pains. "I work 60-hour weeks," I said slowly. I trusted them. I trusted both of them with my son. Over the next 2 hours, I learned the architecture of my ignorance. Finn described systematic abuse. Punishment for minor infractions, sometimes for nothing at all. Edith would wait until I left for work, then find reasons. A toy not put away. Talking back. Breathing too loud. She'd use a wooden spoon, a belt, sometimes just her hands. And Celia would come home to find Finn already in bed, already quiet, already broken for the day. Did your mother ever see the bruises? Mercer asked Finn gently. Sometimes, Grandma would tell her I fell or got in a fight at school. Mom would look at me, and I'd nod because Grandma was right there. Then Mom would tell me to be more careful. The detective's jaw tightened. She never checked, never questioned it. Once, Finn said, a few weeks ago, she saw my back when I was getting out of the shower. She asked Grandma about it. Grandma said I tried to climb the fence and fell. Mom told me I needed to stop being so clumsy. That memory surfaced, Celia mentioning Finn's reckless phase, laughing about how boys were always getting scraped up. I believed her. I've been so focused on providing, on building my business, on being a good provider, that I'd missed my son being tortured under my own roof. What happens now? I asked Mercer. We've issued an emergency protection order. Finn stays with you. Your wife and her mother cannot contact either of you. We're sending officers to your home now to remove Edith Spaulding for questioning. CPS will open a formal investigation. Depending on what we find, we'll be filing charges. I want her arrested, I said. Both of them, if Celia knew. One step at a time, Mr. Browning. Right now, I need you to take Finn somewhere safe. Not your house. Do you have family? Friends? I thought of my brother, Leo, who lived across town. Yes. Good. We'll need you to come back tomorrow for a formal statement. In the meantime, document everything. Every detail you remember that might be relevant. And Mr. Browning, Mercer's eyes held mine. Your son's going to need you present. Not just physically, mentally. Can you do that? I looked at Finn, small and scared in the plastic chair. I can do that. What I didn't say, I was already planning, already calculating, because the law would do what it could. But I was Clayton Browning, and I'd built a successful business by understanding leverage, pressure points, and how to make people face consequences they thought they could avoid. Edith Spaulding had hurt my son, and whether or not Celia had known, she'd failed to protect him. They would both learn what it meant to face a father who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Leo's apartment smelled like coffee and sawdust. My younger brother had always been the artistic one, a furniture maker who'd turned his passion into a modest but steady income. He took one look at Finn and me, standing in his doorway, and knew. How bad? He asked after getting Finn settled with a tablet and headphones in the spare room. I told him everything. Watched his knuckles turn white around his coffee mug. Edith, he said finally, that sanctimonious bitch. I knew something was off about her. Remember Thanksgiving? The way she kept correcting Finn's manners? I thought she was just old-fashioned. I should have seen it. No. Leo's voice was sharp. Don't do that. You trusted your wife. You trusted her mother. That's what you're supposed to do with family. Celia knew Leo. That text message she knew. My phone had been buzzing intermittently. 53 missed calls now. Text that had evolved from demanding to pleading. Clayton, please, we can fix this. Don't let them take Finn. My mother didn't mean it. He's exaggerating. That last one had made me want to put my fist through a wall. What are you going to do? Leo asked. What I have to. Get Finn safe. Make sure they pay. The cops will do their job, but I'm going to do mine. Leo studied me. I know that look. That's the same look you had when Danny Cortez tried to stiff you on the Henderson project. Danny Cortez had tried to avoid paying for 3 months of work. I'd filed a lien on his property, contacted every contractor in the state to blacklist him, and personally ensured his next 2 projects failed inspections until he paid every cent plus interest. Legal. Thorough. Devastating. This is different, I said. This is my son, which is why you need to be smart, not emotional. I'm being smart. I'm gathering information. Over the next 3 days, I learned more about Edith Spaulding than I'd known in 10 years of marriage to her daughter. Detective Mercer kept me updated on the investigation. Edith had been arrested that first night, brought in for questioning. She'd immediately lawyered up, claiming Finn was lying, that she'd never touched him, that I was trying to turn everyone against her. But Hope Knowles' photographs didn't lie. The medical examination didn't lie. And when CPS interviewed Finn with a child psychologist present, his story remained consistent, detailed, and heartbreakingly credible. Celia had been questioned separately. She'd admitted knowing about some discipline, but claimed she thought Edith was just strict, that she'd never seen anything serious. The bruises Finn had shown her, she genuinely believed they were from playing. The story fell apart when they showed her the photographs. She broke down, Mercer told me over the phone. Started crying, saying she didn't know it was that bad, that her mother had always been harsh, but she didn't think. He paused. Mr. Browning, I've been doing this 20 years. I can usually tell when someone's genuinely shocked versus when they're covering. Your wife? She's somewhere in between. I think she knew something was wrong and chose not to look too closely. Willful ignorance. Exactly. Which legally is a gray area. Morally? That's for you to decide. I'd already decided, but I needed more information. I started with Edith's past. Called her late husband's brother, Edmund York, whom I'd met once at the funeral. He was hesitant at first, but when I explained what had happened to Finn, he went silent for a long moment. I wondered, he said finally. My brother, Edith's husband, he and I weren't close the last 15 years. But before that, before they had Celia, he mentioned things. Ways Edith would get when she was angry. He said she had a temper, that she'd throw things, break stuff. One time he showed up to a family dinner with a black eye. Said he'd walked into a cabinet, but I didn't believe him. Did he say she hit him? Never directly. But after Celia was born, he mentioned that Edith believed in old-fashioned discipline. Said children needed to learn respect through consequences. I asked what that meant. He changed the subject. My blood ran cold. Did Celia grow up like this? I don't know for certain, but I do know that when Celia was about 12, there was an incident at school. A teacher noticed bruises on her arms. There was an investigation, but nothing came of it. Different times back then. Parents had more latitude. After hanging up, I sat in Leo's living room, staring at the wall. This wasn't just about Finn. This was a pattern. Generational abuse that Edith had normalized, that Celia had survived, and then perpetuated by allowing it to continue with her own son. I started building a case file. Not for the police, they had what they needed. This was for me. For leverage. I discovered that Edith had been fired from her last job as a home care nurse 3 years ago. The official reason was staff restructuring, but I found the woman who'd been her supervisor, Susan Berry, through LinkedIn. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop. I can't give you specifics, Susan said carefully. Privacy laws. But I can tell you that we had complaints. Multiple complaints from patients' families about Mrs. Spaulding's temperament. The way she handled difficult patients. We tried to retrain her, but some people can't change. When we let her go, she threatened to sue. Said we were discriminating against her because of her age. Did she sue? No. We offered a severance package on the condition she sign an NDA and agree not to disparage the company. She took it. Would you be willing to testify about her behavior if it came to that? Susan's expression hardened. If it's about protecting a child? Absolutely. The pieces were falling into place. Edith Spaulding was a woman who'd spent her life believing that control through pain was acceptable. She'd abused her husband, likely abused her daughter, and when given access to her grandson, she'd continued the cycle. And Celia, damaged by her own upbringing, had either been too conditioned to recognize it or too afraid to confront her mother. Either way, Finn had paid the price. On the fourth day, I got a call from Celia. Not a text. An actual call. I debated answering, then decided I needed to hear what she had to say. Clayton. Her voice was wrecked. Please. I need to see Finn. I need to explain. Explain what? That you let your mother torture our son. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was that bad. You saw the bruises, Celia. You saw them, and you chose to believe lies rather than protect them. She's my mother. I thought. She raised me the same way, and I turned out fine. Did you? The question hung in the air. Did you turn out fine? Or did you turn out so damaged that you can't recognize when your own child is being abused? Silence. Then, quietly, I want to make this right. Then tell me the truth. All of it. When did you first suspect? Another pause. About 2 months ago. I came home early one day and heard her yelling at him. Really yelling. When I went upstairs, Finn was crying in his room, and she said he'd been disrespectful. I asked what happened, and she said it was handled. I saw a red mark on his arm, but she said he'd pulled away when she tried to grab him. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. What else? There were other times. Small things. Finn would flinch when she came near him. He stopped talking at dinner. I told myself he was just being moody, going through a phase. You told yourself lies. I know. She was crying now. I know I failed him. But Clayton, please. I love him. I love both of you. Let me fix this. You can fix it by telling the truth to the police. All of it. Every detail you remember. Don't protect her. She's my mother. And Finn is your son. Choose. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Leo appeared in the doorway. You okay? No. But I will be. I need to get back to work tomorrow. Can Finn stay here a few more days? As long as you need. What's the plan? I thought about Edith, sitting in a jail cell, probably convinced she'd get out of this. Thought about Celia, torn between loyalty to her mother and guilt over her son. Thought about Finn, who'd have to live with this trauma for the rest of his life. The legal system will do its part, I said, but I'm going to make sure they understand exactly who they're dealing with. And I'm going to make sure Edith Spaulding's life becomes exactly what she deserves. Leo nodded slowly. Just remember, Finn needs you on the outside, not in a jail cell yourself. I'm not going to do anything illegal. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to make her face the truth about herself in a way she can't escape. And I'm going to make sure everyone she knows understands exactly what kind of monster she is. Ow! I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm going to build a case so comprehensive, so documented, and so public that she won't be able to hide behind lies or lawyers or age or respectability. I'm going to take everything she values, her reputation, her dignity, her freedom, and I'm going to dismantle it piece by piece. That's cool, man. Good. Because what she did to my son was calculated and cruel. And she's going to learn that when you hurt a Browning, you don't just face justice. You face ruin. The next morning, I started making calls. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, I worked. Not just my construction business, though I showed up to job sites and kept things running. No, my real work happened in the margins. Late nights researching, making phone calls, building connections. I hired a private investigator named Jordan McCabe, a retired cop who specialized in family law cases. I need everything, I told him. Edith Spaulding's entire life, employment history, medical records if you can get them, financial records, anyone who might have information about her character. Jordan delivered. Within a week, I had a folder 2 inches thick. Edith had been married twice before Celia's father. The first marriage had ended after 3 years. Divorce records cited irreconcilable differences, but I tracked down the ex-husband, now living in Florida. He wouldn't talk specifics, but he said, "That woman has a demon inside her." I got out before it killed me. The second marriage lasted less than a year. That ex-husband was deceased, but I found his sister, Joan Ramos, who remembered Edith clearly. She put my brother in the hospital once. Said he fell down the stairs. He told me privately that she'd pushed him during an argument, but he was too ashamed to press charges. Different era. Men weren't supposed to admit their wives could hurt them. I documented everything, built a timeline, showed a pattern of violence spanning 40 years. Meanwhile, Celia filed for divorce. Her lawyer contacted mine. I'd retained the best family law attorney in the state, May Lamb, a woman with a reputation for being ruthless in custody cases. Celia wanted joint custody of Finn, claimed she'd cut her mother out of her life, that she was getting therapy to understand why she'd failed to protect him. Absolutely not, I told May. Full custody. She doesn't get to play the victim here. She could argue that she was a victim too, that her mother manipulated her. I don't care. She had a choice every single day to protect our son, and she chose wrong. May nodded. I can work with that. But you should know, the judge might be sympathetic to her. The mother-daughter abuse cycle is well documented. If she shows genuine remorse and commitment to therapy, then we make sure the judge sees the evidence. Celia saw the bruises. She heard the yelling. She chose to look away. That's not victimhood. That's complicity. The criminal case moved forward. Edith's lawyer tried to get the charges reduced from aggravated child abuse to simple assault, arguing that there was no proof of intent to cause serious injury. The prosecution, led by a stern woman named Regina Kent, wasn't having it. The medical evidence is clear, she told me during a meeting. Multiple incidents over several months. Escalating severity. Use of objects as weapons. This meets the threshold for aggravated abuse. We're pushing for the maximum, 15 years. What are the chances? With Finn's testimony, the photographs, the corroboration from the school nurse and the child psychologist? Strong. But your wife is a complication. If she testifies for the defense, claims she had no idea. She won't. I'll make sure of it. I called Celia that night. The prosecutor wants to know if you'll testify. Against my mother? For your son? Which is it going to be? Long silence. Then, what do you want me to say? The truth. That you saw signs. That you ignored them. That you chose your mother's comfort over Finn's safety. If I do that, I'll lose him anyway. You'll use it to take him away from me. You've already lost him, Celia. He's afraid of you. You know that, right? CPS let you have one supervised visit, and he barely looked at you. He associates you with the person who hurt him and the person who let it happen. The only question now is whether you do the right thing for once in your life and tell the truth, or whether you double down on the lies and prove that you haven't changed at all. She was crying. I hate you right now. I don't care. I care about Finn, and if you have any love for him left, you'll do this. She hung up on me. But 2 days later, her lawyer called May to confirm that Celia would testify for the prosecution. She's going to admit that she saw warning signs and didn't act on them, May told me. It's going to hurt her in the custody case, but it strengthens the criminal case against Edith. Good. Clayton, I need to ask you something. What's your endgame here? Because it seems like you're not just trying to protect Finn. You're trying to destroy these women. Edith? Yes, absolutely. She deserves to rot in prison for what she did. Celia? I paused. I'm trying to make sure she understands the consequences of her choices. If that destroys her, that's on her. May studied me. Be careful. Judges don't like vindictiveness. I'm not being vindictive. I'm being thorough. But May was wrong about one thing. I wasn't trying to destroy Celia. I was trying to save her. Because somewhere under the damage and the denial, there was the woman I'd married. The woman who'd been a good mother before Edith moved in and poisoned everything. If Celia could face what she'd done, really face it, there might be a chance for her to heal, to rebuild. But that had to be her choice. As the preliminary hearing approached, I spent my evenings with Finn. He was seeing a therapist twice a week, a kind man named Dr. Herman Wilkins who specialized in childhood trauma. Slowly, Finn was opening up, talking about what had happened, processing it. Does Grandma hate me? He asked one night as I tucked him into bed at Leo's place. No, buddy. Grandma's sick. She has something wrong in her head that makes her think hurting people is okay. But it's not about you. It was never about you. Why did Mom stop her? That question broke me. I don't know. Sometimes people get confused about what's right. Sometimes they make bad choices because they're scared or they don't know better. Your mom, she made bad choices. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Do you still love Mom? I've been asking myself that question for weeks. Did I love the woman who'd failed to protect our son? Or had I loved an idea of her that never really existed? I love the person I thought she was, I said finally. I'm angry at the choices she made. But Finn, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Not Grandma hurting you. Not Mom failing to protect you. None of it. You're the bravest person I know, and I'm so proud of you. He hugged me tight. I'm scared of the hearing. I don't want to see her. You don't have to testify. The prosecutor said your video interview is enough. You never have to see her again if you don't want to. Promise? I promise. The preliminary hearing arrived. I wore my best suit, the one I saved for major client meetings. Leo came with me for support. Celia sat on the prosecution's side of the courtroom, her face pale and drawn. Edith sat with her lawyer, an expensive defense attorney named Calvin Nunez, who specialized in getting guilty people off on technicalities. The prosecution presented their evidence. photographs that made the spectators gasp, medical testimony about the severity and age of the injuries. Hope Knowles describing Finn's demeanor when he'd reveal the abuse. The child psychologist explaining how Finn's consistent, detailed account matched patterns of genuine trauma rather than coach testimony. Then they played the video interview. Finn's small voice filled the courtroom, describing what had happened. How Grandma would get angry over little things. How she'd hit him with a wooden spoon on his back where it wouldn't show. How she told him that this was what happened to bad boys. That his father would be disappointed if he knew how much trouble Finn was. I watched Edith's face. She showed nothing. No remorse, no guilt, no recognition that the child describing his torture was her own grandson. She sat there like a statue, and I realized something. She genuinely believed she'd done nothing wrong. In her mind, she'd been disciplining a child, teaching him respect, doing what grandmothers were supposed to do. That's when I knew the criminal case wasn't enough. Because even if she went to prison, she'd go believing she was a victim of a too-soft modern world that didn't understand proper child rearing. She'd never acknowledged the harm she'd caused. I needed to make her see it, really see it. After the prosecution rested, the defense had their turn. Nunez called a few character witnesses, people who'd known Edith as a volunteer at her church, a member of her book club, a devoted grandmother who'd never shown any signs of violence. These people didn't know her, I whispered to Leo. They saw the mask. Then Nunez made a mistake. He called Celia to the stand as a defense witness, trying to get her to testify that her mother was a gentle soul who'd been misunderstood. But Celia had committed to the truth. Mrs. Browning, Nunez said, you lived with your mother for 6 months. During that time, did you ever see her strike your son? Celia's voice was steady. No, but I saw the bruises. I saw him flinch around her. I heard her yelling at him, and I chose to believe her explanations rather than investigate further. I failed my son. Nunez looked panicked. But you never witnessed actual abuse. I witnessed the signs of abuse and ignored them. That makes me complicit. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Nunez was furious, arguing with Edith in harsh whispers. Celia sat alone on a bench, crying quietly. I walked past her without stopping. The judge ruled that there was sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Edith's bail was revoked. She'd remain in custody until the trial. As the bailiffs led her away, she finally looked at me. Her eyes were cold, empty. You turned my daughter against me, she said. You did that yourself when you hurt my son. He needed discipline. You're too soft. You're all too soft. This generation doesn't understand that children need firm hands. Children need love. Something you're incapable of understanding. She smiled. Actually smiled. You'll see. When Finn grows up without proper structure, when he becomes soft and weak, you'll remember that I try to save him from that. I stepped closer. Finn is stronger than you'll ever be. Because he survived you. And he's going to grow up knowing that what you did was wrong, that he deserved better, and that his father fought for him. You're going to die in prison, alone, remembered as the monster you always were. Her smile faltered. I'll beat this. You'll see. No, you won't. Because I'm not done yet. As I took her away, I turned to Regina, Kentucky. I need a favor. What kind of favor? I need to make a victim impact statement at sentencing. But more than that, I need to make sure her entire history comes out. Every victim, every pattern, everything. Can you make that happen? Regina studied me. You want to destroy her. I want to make sure she understands what she's done. All of it. Not just to Finn, but to everyone she's ever hurt. I want her to sit in that courtroom and hear testimony from every person whose life she's damaged. I want her to face the full weight of who she is. That's unusual. But if the victims are willing to testify, we can build it into the sentencing phase. They'll testify. I'll make sure of it. Over the next month, I became a one-man crusade. I contacted every person Jordan McCabe had identified in his investigation. Edith's ex-husband's families, former colleagues, former patients' families. I told them what had happened to Finn, asked if they'd be willing to share their experiences. The responses were overwhelming. 14 people agreed to provide statements. People who'd been hurt by Edith, intimidated by her, damaged by her cruelty. each one adding to the portrait of a woman who'd spent her life wielding power through pain. I also worked with Dr. Wilkins to get Finn stable enough to move back home. It took time. We had to clean out every trace of Edith from the house, repaint Finn's room, get him a new bed, new everything, create a space where he felt safe. Celia, meanwhile, was falling apart. She'd moved into an apartment, started therapy, quit her job to focus on healing. She called once a week, asking about Finn, begging for a chance to see him. I let her talk to him on video calls, supervised by Dr. Wilkins. Slowly, Finn started opening up to her, started asking questions about why she hadn't helped him. I was scared, she told him during one call, tears streaming down her face. I was scared of standing up to Grandma. When I was your age, she hurt me too. And instead of breaking that cycle, I let it happen to you. I'm so sorry, Finn. I know sorry isn't enough, but I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be the mom you deserved all along. Finn listened. Then he said, "Do you still love Grandma?" I love the idea of who I wanted her to be, but I don't love who she really is. And I will never, ever let her near you again. Okay, Finn said quietly. That's good. After the call, Dr. Wilkins told me that Finn was processing everything remarkably well. He's resilient, but he's going to need consistency, stability. He needs to know that the adults in his life are going to protect him. He'll have that. I promise. The trial date was set for 3 months out. In the meantime, I focused on being present for Finn, taking him to school, helping with homework, teaching him that life could be normal again. And in the quiet moments, I planned. Because Edith Spaulding's legal punishment was just the beginning. What I had in mind was something far more comprehensive. Something that would ensure she understood, fully and completely, the devastation she'd caused. Not just to Finn, but to everyone she'd ever touched. I was going to make her legacy one of shame and ruin. And by the time I was done, her name would be synonymous with everything wrong, everything cruel, everything that good people stood against. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. The kind that couldn't be measured in years behind bars, but in the complete dismantling of a carefully constructed life built on lies and cruelty. The trial began on a cold Tuesday in November. I'd taken a leave of absence from work. Leo was managing my projects, and I'd made arrangements with my clients. Nothing mattered more than seeing this through. The courtroom was packed. Local media had picked up the story. Grandmother accused of systematic child abuse. Edith's church friends filled 2 rows there to support her. But I made sure other voices were present too. I'd contacted a victims' rights organization, a child advocacy group, and made sure they understood the significance of this case. Regina Kent was methodical in her prosecution. She started with the medical evidence, bringing in Dr. Patricia McMullen, the pediatrician who'd examined Finn after the initial report. Dr. McMullen's testimony was clinical and devastating. She described each injury in detail, explained how the pattern and age of bruising indicated repeated abuse over an extended period. In my 23 years as a pediatrician, Dr. McMullen said, I've seen many cases of child abuse. This is one of the most systematic I've encountered. The injuries were carefully placed to avoid detection. The escalation pattern suggests someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Nunez, the defense attorney, tried to suggest alternative explanations. Maybe Finn was accident-prone? Maybe the injuries came from rough play at school? Dr. McMullen shut him down. These injuries are consistent with inflicted trauma, not accidental injury. The bruising patterns match grip marks and implement strikes. There's no ambiguity here. Next, Regina called Hope Knowles. The school nurse described Finn's demeanor when he'd revealed the abuse. The fear, the trembling, the way he'd made her promise not to tell anyone until she could protect him. He was terrified, Hope said, not of getting in trouble for telling. He was terrified of what would happen if his grandmother found out. That's not the behavior of a child making up stories. That's the behavior of a child living in fear. The defense tried to paint Hope as overreacting, as seeing abuse where there was merely strict discipline. But Hope held firm. I've been a school nurse for 15 years. I know the difference between a child who's been disciplined and a child who's been abused. Finn Browning was abused. Then came Dr. Wilkins, who testified about his sessions with Finn. The trauma symptoms are consistent with prolonged abuse. Finn exhibits hypervigilance, avoidance behaviors, and intrusive memories. These aren't fabricated symptoms. They're genuine indicators of significant psychological trauma. The defense couldn't shake him. Nunez tried to suggest that Finn had been coached by me or by the prosecution. Dr. Wilkins calmly explained how trained professionals can detect coach testimony, and that nothing about Finn's disclosures suggested outside influence. The child is telling the truth about his experiences, Dr. Wilkins said firmly. And those experiences were traumatic. Throughout all of this, Edith sat stone-faced. No emotion, no reaction. She dressed in conservative clothing, her gray hair pulled back, playing the part of a respectable elder. But I could see through it. Could see the contempt in her eyes when witnesses described what she'd done. The prosecution's case took 3 days. On day 4, they played Finn's video testimony. I'd already seen it multiple times, but watching it in a courtroom full of strangers felt different. Felt exposing. My son, describing his torture in that small, brave voice. Several jurors wiped their eyes. Edith's church friends looked uncomfortable, but Edith herself showed nothing. When the prosecution rested, Nunez put on a weak defense. He called character witnesses who testified that Edith was a devoted grandmother, a kind neighbor, a faithful church member. But under cross-examination, Regina got each of them to admit they'd never actually seen Edith interact with Finn in private, never witnessed her parenting style, only knew the public persona she presented. Nunez tried to call Celia to testify that her mother had never been violent. But Celia was still listed as a prosecution witness, and when Regina called her back, she doubled down on her previous testimony. My mother believed in harsh discipline, Celia said. I grew up with it. I normalized it. When I saw signs that she was hurting Finn, I told myself it was just her way of teaching him respect. I was wrong. I should have protected him, and I will live with that failure for the rest of my life. But your mother never intended to cause serious harm? Nunez pressed. Intent doesn't matter when a child is suffering. She knew what she was doing. She chose to do it, and she chose to threaten him into silence. That's not discipline. That's abuse. The defense rested after 2 days. Closing arguments were scheduled for the following Monday. I spent the weekend with Finn, trying to keep things normal. We went to the park, watched movies, made dinner together. He seemed lighter, somehow, as if testifying, even via video, had lifted a weight. Dad, he said Saturday night, after the trial, will everything go back to normal? I don't know if anything will be exactly like before. I said honestly, but we'll build a new normal. A better one. Will I have to see Grandma again? Never. Not if you don't want to. Good. He paused. What about Mom? That question was harder. What do you want? I don't know. I'm still mad at her, but I miss her sometimes. The way she used to be, before Grandma came. It's okay to feel both things. To be angry and to miss her. People are complicated. Are you still mad at her? Yes, but I'm also hoping she can change. That she can become the person you need her to be. Me too. On Monday, Regina Kent delivered a closing argument that was both passionate and precise. She walked the jury through every piece of evidence, every testimony, building an irrefutable case that Edith Spaulding had systematically abused her grandson. This wasn't discipline, Regina said. This wasn't a grandmother trying to teach respect. This was cruelty. This was a woman who enjoyed wielding power over a helpless child. And when that child finally found the courage to speak up, she threatened him, told him that accidents happen to people who don't listen. That's not love. That's terrorism. She paused, letting the words sink in. Finn Browning is 8 years old. He should be worried about homework and video games and making friends. Instead, he's in therapy, learning to process the trauma of being tortured by someone who was supposed to love him. The defense would have you believe this is a misunderstanding, that Mrs. Spaulding's actions were misinterpreted. But the evidence is clear. The injuries are real. The fear is real. The trauma is real. And Edith Spaulding is guilty. Nunez's closing was predictable. He tried to paint Edith as a victim of generational differences, someone whose old-fashioned discipline methods have been misunderstood by a hypersensitive modern world. He suggested that Finn might have exaggerated, that children sometimes fabricate stories for attention. It didn't land. Even I could see the jury wasn't buying it. The judge gave instructions. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, their faces were somber. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the count of aggravated child abuse, how do you find guilty? Edith didn't flinch, didn't react. Just sat there, stone-faced, as if this was happening to someone else. On the count of child endangerment, how do you find guilty? On the count of making terroristic threats to a minor, how do you find guilty? 3 guilty verdicts. Maximum sentence possible, 22 years. The judge scheduled sentencing for 3 weeks out. As the bailiffs led Edith away, she finally looked at me, and she smiled. That same cold, empty smile. You haven't won, she said quietly as she passed. I did nothing wrong. That's when I knew what I had to do for the sentencing hearing. I spent the next 3 weeks preparing. Not just gathering victim statements, though I did that too. I was building something bigger. A comprehensive presentation that would force Edith to confront every single person she'd hurt, every life she'd damaged, every moment of cruelty she'd inflicted. Regina can't help me organize it. This is unconventional, she admitted. But the judge has indicated he wants a full picture of Mrs. Spaulding's character before sentencing. If you can get these people to testify, it'll be powerful. I got them to testify. First was Edmund York, Edith's late husband's brother. He described the fear his brother had lived with, the way he'd make excuses for injuries, the way he'd withdrawn from family. My brother died of a heart attack at 59, Edmund said. But I think the stress of living with that woman killed him years earlier. Next was Joan Ramos, the sister of Edith's second ex-husband. She described finding her brother with broken ribs, with bruises, with a split lip. He was ashamed to admit his wife was beating him. When I finally convinced him to leave, she stalked him for months. Called his workplace, told his friends he was abusive, tried to destroy his reputation. She's a predator. Then came Susan Berry, Edith's former supervisor from the nursing home. She described complaints from patients' families about rough handling, about Edith losing her temper with difficult patients, about emotional abuse disguised as firm care. We couldn't prove anything actionable, Susan said. But I've never felt worse about letting someone go without formal documentation. I knew she was dangerous. I just didn't have the evidence to stop her. One by one, they testified. 14 people whose lives had intersected with Edith Spaulding and come away damaged. The portrait that emerged was of a woman who'd spent decades hurting people and justifying it as strength, discipline, or tough love. Through it all, Edith sat expressionless. Her lawyer objected repeatedly, claiming this was prejudicial, that past behavior shouldn't influence sentencing. The judge overruled each objection. Mrs. Spaulding's character is directly relevant to sentencing, the judge said. I want to understand who I'm sentencing. Then it was my turn. My victim impact statement. I stood at the podium, looking directly at Edith. My son is 8 years old. Before you came into our lives, he was happy, confident, full of energy and curiosity. You took that from him. You beat him, terrorized him, and taught him to be afraid in his own home. And you did it while smiling to my face, while pretending to be a loving grandmother. I paused. But what makes you truly evil isn't just what you did to Finn. It's that you don't think you did anything wrong. You've sat through this entire trial without showing a shred of remorse. You've heard testimony about the pain you've caused, and you feel nothing. Because in your mind, you were justified. You were teaching. You were disciplining. You were doing what needed to be done. I leaned forward. You know what I hope? I hope you spend every day of your prison sentence thinking about Finn, about what he's overcoming, about how he's learning that love doesn't require pain, that family doesn't mean fear, that strength comes from kindness, not cruelty. I hope you watch from your cell as he grows up to be everything you try to beat out of him, compassionate, brave, and good. I turned to the judge. She'll probably get 15, maybe 20 years. She's 72. She'll likely die in prison. And I want her to die knowing that despite everything she did, she failed. Finn survived. He's thriving. And her legacy isn't the fear she tried to instill. It's the courage he showed in standing up to her. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. Then Celia approached the podium. I hadn't known she was planning to speak. Your Honor, she began, her voice shaking. I'm Finn's mother. I'm also Edith Spaulding's daughter. And I'm here to tell you that everything these people have said about her is true. She took a breath. My mother raised me the same way she hurt Finn. With fear, with pain, with the message that love required suffering, that family meant obedience, that questioning her authority meant punishment. I grew up thinking this was normal. And when I had my own son, I was so conditioned by her methods that I couldn't see what was happening until it was almost too late. Tears streamed down her face. I failed Finn. I saw the signs and ignored them because standing up to my mother felt impossible. She trained me my whole life to never question her. And I'm so ashamed that I let that training override my duty to protect my child. She looked at Edith. Mom, I'm done. I'm done making excuses for you. I'm done pretending your abuse was love. I'm done letting you define what family means. You hurt me. You hurt Finn. You've hurt everyone who ever loved you. And I hope you spend the rest of your life understanding that the isolation you feel, the abandonment, the condemnation, you earned all of it. Celia turned back to the judge. I don't expect forgiveness from my son or my husband, but I wanted to stand here and publicly acknowledge what I did wrong and what she did wrong, because silence is what allowed this to continue. And I won't be silent anymore. The judge listened to everything. Then he addressed Edith directly. Mrs. Spaulding, do you have anything to say before I impose sentencing? For the first time, Edith spoke. I did what I thought was right. I will not apologize for trying to raise a child properly. The judge's expression hardened. Then you've learned nothing. Mrs. Spaulding, I've been on this bench for 17 years. I've sentenced murderers who showed more remorse than you. The evidence in this case shows a pattern of cruelty spanning decades. You've hurt your husbands, your patients, your daughter, and your grandson, and you've shown no recognition that your actions were wrong. He paused. Normally, I take rehabilitation potential into account when sentencing, but you can't rehabilitate someone who doesn't acknowledge they did anything wrong. You're not just a danger to children. You're a danger to anyone vulnerable who comes into your orbit. The courtroom held its breath. On the count of aggravated child abuse, I sentence you to 20 years. On the count of child endangerment, 10 years to run consecutively. On the count of terroristic threats to a minor, 5 years, also consecutive. Total sentence, 35 years in the state penitentiary with no possibility of parole for at least 25 years. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. 35 years. Edith would be 107 before she could even be considered for parole. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm ordering a permanent restraining order prohibiting you from any contact with Finn Browning or his immediate family. You are to have no communication, direct or indirect, for the rest of your natural life. He banged his gavel. Court is adjourned. As the bailiffs stood to take Edith away, she finally broke. This is ridiculous. I'm an old woman. You're giving me a death sentence for trying to discipline child. No, the judge said quietly. I'm giving you the consequence you've avoided your entire life. Bailiffs, remove her. She fought them, actually fought them, screaming about injustice, about how this generation was too soft, about how she'd done nothing wrong. It took 3 bailiffs to get her out of the courtroom. I sat there, watching her being dragged away, and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just exhaustion. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I made a brief statement. My son is safe. Justice has been served. We're ready to move forward with our lives. Celia approached me hesitantly. Clayton, not now, I said. Give me time. I understand. She looked broken. For what it's worth, I meant what I said in there. I'm getting help. I'm changing. Good. Finn deserves a mother who can protect him. Can I see him? I mean, when you think he's ready. I considered it. Supervised visits. Through Dr. Wilkins. If Finn wants to. But Celia, you need to understand, you don't get to be his mom just because you gave birth to him. You have to earn that role back. And it's going to take time. I know. I'll wait. As long as it takes. I nodded and walked away. Leo was waiting by his truck. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like I need to go home and be with my son." We drove to Leo's apartment where Finn was staying with a babysitter. When I walked in, Finn looked up from his homework. "Is it over?" he asked. "It's over. She's been in prison for a very long time." "How long?" "Probably the rest of her life." Finn absorbed this. Then he said, "Good. I hope she thinks about what she did." "Me too, buddy." That night, I tucked Finn in a bed in his own room, in our house for the first time in months. I'd renovated his entire space. New paint, new furniture, new everything. A fresh start. "Dad," Finn said as I turned off the light. "Are we going to be okay?" "Yeah, buddy. We're going to be better than okay." "Promise?" "I promise." And for the first time in months, I believed it. The weeks after sentencing were about rebuilding. I threw myself into work, catching up on projects I neglected. My clients had been understanding, but I had a business to run. Leo had done an admirable job keeping things afloat, but there were decisions only I could make. Finn returned to school. There were whispers, of course, other parents who'd heard about the trial. But Hope Knowles and the principal had worked hard to create a protective environment. Teachers kept watch. Counselors checked in. Slowly, Finn's confidence returned. Dr. Wilkins continued therapy sessions twice a week. "He's processing remarkably well," the therapist told me. "Children are resilient, and Finn has strong support systems. The nightmares are decreasing. The hypervigilance is still there, but improving." "What about Celia?" I asked. "He's been asking about her more." "That's natural. She's his mother." The fact that he's able to ask about her indicates he's starting to separate what she did from who he needs her to be. "If you're comfortable with it, supervised visits might be beneficial." I arranged it through Dr. Wilkins' office. Celia could see Finn for 1 hour every Saturday, with the therapist present. The first visit was awkward. Finn was guarded, answering her questions in monosyllables. But Celia didn't push. She let him lead, responded to what he offered, and didn't try to force affection. By the third visit, Finn was talking more. By the fifth, he initiated a hug when she arrived. "She's doing the work," Dr. Wilkins told me. "She's in therapy herself, addressing her own trauma from how Edith raised her. She's learning to be the parent Finn needs." "Is she going to be okay?" I asked. "That's not really my area. But from what I've seen, she's committed to changing. Whether that's enough to repair her relationship with Finn, only time will tell." Meanwhile, I've been gathering information about Edith's placement in the prison system. She'd been sent to a maximum security women's facility 3 hours away. I'd arranged to have regular updates sent to me. Not because I wanted to know how she was doing, but because I wanted to make sure she was where she belonged. The reports were satisfying. Edith was having trouble adjusting to prison life. She'd gotten into confrontations with other inmates, refused to follow certain rules, and been placed in solitary confinement twice already. The guard described her as difficult and uncooperative. Good. Let her spend the rest of her life understanding what it felt like to have no control, no power, no ability to hurt others. But I wasn't satisfied with just her imprisonment. I wanted to make sure her legacy was one of shame. I contacted a journalist named Lynn Myers who'd covered the trial. "I want to tell the whole story," I said. "Not just what happened to Finn, but the pattern. Edith Spaulding's entire history of abuse." Lynn was interested. "This could be a powerful piece. Generational abuse, the ways we normalize cruelty, the importance of believing children. But I'll need cooperation from multiple sources." "You'll have it." Over the next month, Lynn interviewed everyone who testified at sentencing. She interviewed Celia, who spoke openly about her own abuse and failure to protect Finn. She interviewed Dr. Wilkins about the psychological impact of systematic child abuse. She interviewed me about the moment I learned what had happened and the fight to get justice. The article ran as a 3-part series in the state's largest newspaper. The Making of a Monster: How Edith Spaulding Got Away with Decades of Abuse. It was thorough, well-researched, and damning. The response was overwhelming. Local news picked it up. National outlets requested interviews. Victim advocacy groups reached out to thank me for speaking up. And most importantly, other survivors started coming forward. People who'd been hurt by Edith in ways we hadn't even known about. A former neighbor described how Edith had abused her position as a volunteer Sunday school teacher. using corporal punishment on children without their parents' knowledge. A woman who'd been a patient when Edith worked as a home care nurse described being emotionally tormented, having her pain dismissed, being told she was weak and pathetic when she asked for help. Each new story added to the portrait. Each one confirmed what I'd always known. Edith wasn't just a grandmother who'd made a mistake. She was a predator who'd spent her entire life hurting vulnerable people. I compiled everything into a comprehensive file and sent it to the district attorney. I don't know if any of this rises to additional charges, I wrote, but I want it documented. I want a record that shows exactly who she was. Regina Kent called me a week later. We're looking into the Sunday school incidents. Statute of limitations might be an issue, but we're exploring options. At minimum, we're adding this to her permanent record. Good. Clayton, I need to ask, why are you doing this? She's already in prison. She's going to die there. What more do you want? I thought about that. I want her to know that she didn't get away with it. Any of it. I want her to understand that every person she hurt, every life she damaged, we all see her for what she is. And I want to make sure that her name becomes a warning. That when people hear Edith Spaulding, they don't think of a respectable elder. They think of what happens when cruelty goes unchecked. That's a crusade. Yeah, it is. Regina was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Too many abusers get away with it because people are afraid to speak up, afraid to make waves. You're making sure that doesn't happen here. The crusade continued. I worked with the victim advocacy groups to create educational materials about recognizing and reporting child abuse. I spoke at schools and community centers about the importance of believing children when they report harm. I used my story, used Finn's story, with his permission, to help others. Dad, Finn said one evening after I'd returned from a speaking engagement, why do you keep talking about what happened? Don't you want to forget? I don't think we should forget, I said. I think we should remember so we can make sure it doesn't happen to other kids. You were brave enough to tell the truth. I'm just making sure people listen. Do you think it helps? I know it does. I've had parents come up to me after talks and say they recognized warning signs in their own families. Teachers who said they'll be more vigilant. Kids who said they felt brave enough to speak up about their own situations. Every person we help makes what you went through mean something. Finn considered this. Then I'm glad you're doing it. 6 months after the sentencing, Celia petitioned for partial custody. May Lamb, my lawyer, advised caution. She's shown genuine effort, May said. She's completed her therapy program, maintained steady employment, attended every supervised visit with Finn. The court might be sympathetic. What does Finn want? That's the question, isn't it? I asked him. We were sitting at the kitchen table, working on his science project about the solar system. Finn, your mom wants to have you stay with her sometimes. Like every other weekend. How do you feel about that? He didn't answer right away. He carefully glued Saturn's rings to the styrofoam ball, considering. I think I like that, he said finally. As long as you're still my main home. And as long as Grandma can never come. Grandma will never come. That's guaranteed. And you'll always have a home with me. Then okay. Mom's been nice at our visits. She listens now. She asks what I think instead of telling me what to think. That's good. That's really good. I didn't oppose Celia's petition. The judge granted limited custody every other weekend with the condition that Edith could never be present and that Celia continue her therapy. The first weekend Finn went to stay with her, I was anxious. But when I picked him up Sunday evening, he was smiling. We made pancakes, he said, and Mom let me pick the movie. We watched the superhero one I wanted. That sounds nice. It was. She's different now. Better. Slowly, carefully, Celia was rebuilding. Not the relationship we'd had. That was broken beyond repair. But something new. A co-parenting partnership built on honesty and Finn's needs rather than on romance or obligation. One evening, about 8 months after the sentencing, Celia and I met for coffee to discuss Finn's upcoming school year. Thank you, she said quietly, for giving me a chance to be his mother again. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Finn. I know, but still, thank you. We talked about mundane things, school supplies, after-school activities, his growing interest in soccer. Normal parent stuff. As we were leaving, Celia said, I got a letter from my mother. I froze. What did it say? She want me to visit. Says I'm the only family she has left, that she's sorry for how things turned out, that she just wants to see me one more time. Are you going to? No. Celia's voice was firm. I wrote back and told her that I'm done. That I've spent 36 years letting her define who I am, and I'm not doing it anymore. That I hope she finds peace, but I can't be part of her life anymore. How did that feel? Terrifying and liberating. She was my mother, but she was also the source of so much pain. And I finally understand that I can't save her or fix her or make her understand what she did wrong. All I can do is make sure I don't repeat her mistakes with Finn. You're doing that. You're being the mother he needs. She smiled, tears in her eyes. I'm trying. Every single day, I'm trying. As I drove home that night, I thought about justice and redemption. Edith was in prison, where she belonged. Celia was rebuilding, doing the hard work of changing. And Finn was healing, growing stronger every day. Was it enough? Would it ever be enough? I didn't have an answer, but I had my son, safe and loved. And I had the knowledge that I'd fought for him, that I'd done everything in my power to protect him and to make sure his abuser faced consequences. That would have to be enough. 2 years after Edith's sentencing, I got a call from the prison. She died of a heart attack in her cell. She was 74. I felt nothing. No sadness, no relief. Just a kind of empty acknowledgement that a chapter had closed. Should we tell Finn? Leo asked when I shared the news. I think so. He deserves to know. That evening, I sat Finn down. He was 10 now, taller, more confident. The scared 8-year-old was still in there somewhere, but he'd been joined by a kid who laughed easily, who had friends, who was learning that the world could be safe. Finn, I need to tell you something. Your grandma Edith died yesterday. He absorbed this. Ow! Heart attack. She didn't suffer. Oh, he was quiet for a moment. Is that bad that I don't feel sad? No, buddy. You're allowed to feel however you feel about it. I think I'm just glad she can't hurt anyone anymore. That's a fair feeling. Are we going to her funeral? There isn't going to be one. She didn't have any friends left, and I'm certainly not organizing it. Finn nodded. Okay, can we have pizza for dinner? Just like that, he moved on, and I realized that Edith's death didn't define him. She'd hurt him, but she hadn't broken him. He was resilient and whole and beautifully himself. That was the real victory. Not the prison sentence, not the public shaming, not even her death. The victory was that Finn had survived and was thriving. That he knew he was loved, that he understood what had happened to him wasn't his fault, that he was learning to trust again. A few days later, I got a letter from Celia. Clayton, I heard about my mother's death. I know I should feel something, but mostly I just feel relieved. Relieved that she can't try to contact me anymore. Relieved that there's no chance she'll ever get out and try to come near Finn. Relieved that I can finally, truly, close that chapter of my life. I've been thinking a lot about the past 2 years. About how you could have destroyed me completely, taken Finn away forever, made sure I never saw him again. You would have been justified, but you gave me a chance to change, to rebuild. And I want you to know that I will never take that for granted. Finn is thriving. And a lot of that is because of you, your strength, your protection, your refusal to let what happened define him. But some of it is also because you let me back into his life when I'd proven I didn't deserve it. You gave me the opportunity to earn back his trust. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. Thank you, Celia. I read the letter twice, then filed it away. Celia had done the work. She'd faced her demons, acknowledged her failures, and committed to being better. Our marriage was over. Some things couldn't be repaired. But she was becoming a good mother to Finn, and that was what mattered. 3 years after the sentencing, Finn was in middle school. He joined the soccer team, made good friends, and was excelling in school. The nightmares had stopped. The hypervigilance had faded. He was just a regular kid with a complicated past that he was learning to integrate into who he was becoming. One evening, he came home from a sleepover at his friend's house looking thoughtful. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think what happened with Grandma made me stronger? Like, everyone says what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but is that true? I consider my answer carefully. I think you're strong because of who you are, not because of what happened to you. What Grandma did was wrong. It hurt you. But the way you survived it, the way you were brave enough to tell the truth, the way you've worked through it, that's your strength. Not the abuse itself. So I'd still be strong, even if it hadn't happened. Yes, but you might not know it yet. Sometimes we don't discover our strength until we're tested. I wish I hadn't been tested. Me too, buddy. Me too. He was quiet for a moment, but I'm glad I was strong enough to handle it. I'm proud of you. Every single day, I'm proud of you. For years after the sentencing, I was invited to speak at a national conference on child advocacy. My story, Finn's story, had become a case study in how to handle disclosure, how to support survivors, how to ensure accountability. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of social workers, teachers, counselors, and advocates, I felt the weight of what we'd been through. But I also felt the power of what we'd accomplished. 4 years ago, I told them, my son showed his school nurse bruises on his back. That moment of bravery, that decision to trust an adult with his truth, set in motion a chain of events that not only saved him, but has helped countless other children. Because we listened, because we believed him, because we took action. I paused. The person who hurt him is gone now, but her legacy isn't the pain she caused. It's the systems we've built to prevent that pain. It's the training programs, the awareness campaigns, the support networks. It's every child who's been saved because someone recognized the warning signs and acted. After the speech, people lined up to talk to me. Teachers who'd identified abuse in their students. Social workers who'd successfully prosecuted cases. Parents who'd learned to listen better. And survivors, now adults, who thanked me for speaking out. One woman, probably in her 60s, shook my hand with tears in her eyes. My grandmother abused me the same way, she said. Beat me, threatened me, made me believe it was normal. I never told anyone. I just survived it and tried to forget. But I never really forgot. I'm so glad your son had you. I'm so glad someone believed him and fought for him. Thank you for showing what that looks like. I hugged her. I'm sorry no one fought for you. Me too. But maybe sharing your story will help someone fight for the next kid. That night, I called Finn from my hotel room. How was your speech? He asked. Good. People needed to hear it. Do you think we're helping people, Dad? Like really helping? I know we are. I met someone today who wished someone had helped her the way we helped you. And there are kids out there right now who are safer because of what you were brave enough to do. That's cool. His voice brightened. Hey, Mom and I made cookies earlier. I saved you some for when you get home. Thanks, buddy. I'll be back tomorrow. Love you. Love you too, Dad. 5 years after everything started, I sat in my backyard watching Finn play soccer with his friends. He was 13, gangly and growing into himself. Happy, confident, scarred but not broken. Leo joined me, handed me a beer. You did good, man, he said. We all did. It wasn't just me. Yeah, but you were the one who wouldn't let it go. You could have been satisfied with the conviction. Instead, you made sure everyone knew. Made sure it meant something. I thought about Edith, dead in a prison cell. About Celia, rebuilding her relationship with her son. About the hundreds of people who'd heard our story and been moved to act. Do you think I went too far? I asked. Too far would have been vigilante justice. Taking the law into your own hands. You used the system. You just made sure the system did everything it was supposed to do. I wanted her to suffer. She did suffer. She died alone, hated, with her entire life exposed as a lie. That's worse than anything you could have done to her physically. I watched Finn score a goal, watched his friends cheer for him. I just wanted him safe. He is safe, and he knows he's loved. That's the victory, Clayton. Now what happened to Edith? What happened to Finn? He survived. He's thriving. You did that. Maybe Leo was right. Maybe the real revenge wasn't destroying Edith. It was building Finn back up. Showing him that he mattered more than the person who hurt him. Teaching him that survival wasn't just about enduring, but about flourishing despite it all. That evening, Finn and I sat on the back porch eating ice cream. Dad, can I tell you something? Always. Sometimes I still think about what happened. Not nightmares or anything. Just remembering. That's normal. I know. Dr. Wilkins says it's part of processing. But I wanted to tell you, when I remember now, I don't just remember the bad stuff. I remember you coming to get me that day. I remember feeling safe again. I remember everyone who helped me. And that makes the bad stuff feel smaller. My throat tightened. Good. That's really good, Finn. I think I'm okay, Dad. Like, really okay. I think you are too. We sat there as the sun set. Father and son, survivors of a nightmare that had tested us but hadn't defeated us. And in that moment, I knew that everything I'd done, the investigation, the trial, the crusade to expose Edith's history, all of it, had been worth it. Because Finn was okay. And that was the only victory that truly mattered. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.